Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another video from Homesteading Off the Grid. It's a beautiful, glorious morning here, August 27, 2018. It's the morning after the official full sturgeon moon, and we just uploaded a video about that. I hope you saw it. If not, go back and watch it. I got out here at 5 o'clock this morning while it was still pitch black dark and got a few minutes of the moon. And before that, at the beginning of the video, the sunset was so beautiful yesterday evening over the Blue Ridge Mountains, as it always is every evening over the Blue Ridge Mountains, that we took about a 30-second shot of that and put it on before the moon. Yeah, it's just so beautiful here in Albemarle County, Virginia. The weather is temperate. It's a wonderful place to live year-round. Summers get hot and they get humid, but you know, well, we make it through. The winters are typically very mild. The falls are glorious. We have all the deciduous hardwood trees that change colors. It's beautiful, and in the spring, of course, it's like living inside of a Norman Rockwell painting. I've heard many folks in this area use that very same description. Living in Charlottesville and living in Albemarle County is like living inside of a Norman Rockwell painting, and it's true. I'm gonna give you a quick shot of the sunrise this morning. I mean, I showed you the sunset yesterday, and of course, I'm going to show you this here again at the end, but I showed you the sunset yesterday evening, the sturgeon moon. Here we are. Here's the sun coming up. Isn't this beautiful? Absolutely gorgeous. Now, here, over the last few days, we've been hanging out, doing some stuff around here, hanging out with the family. Been reading the comments on the videos we've been uploading, and a lot of folks have been mentioning the old Farmers Almanac, about how we can get some good ideas out of there. Of course, I'm familiar with it. When I make these videos, I notice when I go back and watch them that sometimes I look over my shoulder like this. I'm not paranoid, contrary to what some folks think. There's just so much wildlife around here. I hear it walking around in the woods behind me, and I'm just always looking over to see what it is. Usually it's deer and squirrels, but we do have a 300-pound black bear that's been hanging out here this summer, and it's not that I'm afraid he's coming out to get me, or she. I just want to see what's coming out. I think this is deer, and a lot of it too is nuts. This hickory tree back here is just really shedding hickory nuts like crazy. So anyway, I went to the Farmers Almanac. I guess every year the winter prediction from the old Farmers Almanac is a pretty big deal, and a lot of people take it pretty seriously. So I got this year, for the winter 2018-2019, the old Farmers Almanac winter weather forecast. I'm going to read you this year's forecast. I'm going to give you my take on it. And I bet you, I can guarantee you right now, here's my prediction. My prediction is that my take on the old Farmers Almanac winter prediction is just as accurate as the old Farmers Almanac winter's prediction itself. I guarantee you. I can promise you that. All right. This year, for the winter of 2018-2019, the old Farmers Almanac is calling for, now this is for the United States, I've got the prediction here for the United States and Canada. We've got a lot of subscribers in Europe, particularly England. We've got a lot of folks watching from Australia, a lot of folks up in Canada. I've got yours, and a lot of folks in Asia. But I can only give you for the United States and Canada. Here in the U.S., the old Farmers Almanac is predicting above normal temperatures almost everywhere in the United States, except for in the Southwest, where they're predicting colder than normal temperatures for the season. So pretty much, if you live anywhere in the U.S. except for in the Southwest, like Arizona, Southern California, that region, you can expect above normal temperatures. That's good. I mean, I'm not a big fan of cold weather. That's one of the reasons I really like living here in this part of the country. Here in Virginia, the winters are typically pretty mild. We get a few snows a year, but they typically don't last long. They melt off pretty quick, just enough to see snow, get to go out and go sleigh riding. Okay, now this milder than normal forecast is due to a decrease in solar activity and the expected arrival of a weak El Nino, preventing cold air masses from lingering in the northern part of the U.S. going to push them up through there. Okay, as far as precipitation goes, the old Farmers Almanac is calling for much less snow than average and much more rain. And that makes sense, right? Any precipitation that comes through, if we're going to have above average temperatures, it's more than likely going to come out in the form of rain rather than snow. I can live with that, can you? Now, Canada, central and southern Canada, you're going to be okay. You're going to have about an average winter, but northern Canada is going to have a colder than average winter, and you're going to have more snow. So, good news for most of North America as far as this winter goes, unless you love the cold. If you love the cold and you love winter, then it's bad news for you. But for those of us who aren't big fans of cold weather and cold temperatures and lots of snow, it's pretty good news for us. So, now, is this accurate? Do we have any way of knowing whether or not the old Farmer's Almanac is actually accurate or not? Well, we can look at last year. There's two things we can look at. We can look at last year's numbers and we can look at the long-term track record. Last year, the old Farmer's Almanac was calling for a terrible, disastrous winter. We had a pretty serious nor'easter come through here. We had heavy winds, we had cold temperatures, got down in the 20s, which is cold here for Virginia. We didn't get a lot of snow, and other than that particular storm, it wasn't that bad of a winter. It was fairly mild. And now spring was cooler than average, and we had a lot more rain than average. And then this summer has been a lot more rain. We've had the wettest, rainiest year I can remember in my 44 years. A lot of folks can relate to that, and they've said the same thing. So we didn't quite get the disastrous snowstorms last year that the old Farmer's Almanac said we were going to get. So I guess it was kind of off last year. It wasn't all that accurate. But now, how's it done long term? Okay, the old Farmer's Almanac dates back to wait a minute. You can tell I get up early. I wrote 1972. No, it was 1792 is when it was started. It actually started during the very first presidency of the United States, when George Washington was in his first term. People paid more attention to such things back then because technology had not advanced, obviously, to the point that it has now. I'm not knocking the old Farmer's Almanac. I know a lot of folks swear by it. I've never really been one to follow it. The old Farmer's Almanac, they claim that they're accurate 80% of the time. That's their claim. And if you ask them how they gather their information, they say they can't tell you. It's a secret. It's top secret. So anyway, they claim that they've got an 80% accuracy. But if we look back and check their predictions based upon reality of how things actually turn out, most sources will tell you that it's accurate about 50% of the time. So it's got a 50-50 chance. Go figure. You say this winter is going to be warmer than average or it's going to be colder than average. You're either right or you're wrong, about a 50-50 chance. That's why in the beginning I told you that I can promise you that my prediction for this winter is going to be as accurate as the old Farmer's Almanac. Because really it's right half the time, the other half it's not. So I can say it's going to be super cold this winter, and I'm either going to be right or I'm either going to be wrong, but either way, I'm 50-50 right. And again, this isn't knocking the old Farmer's Almanac. A lot of folks depend upon it. This is just giving you the actual historical numbers. Now, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to stick to my you-know-what hits the fan plan that I shared with you the other day. If you missed that, you need to go back and check that out. It's pretty good. I'll put that video on the end of this one. What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to prepare for winter the same way I prepare for every winter. We burn wood in a wood stove out here. We've been dragging our feet as far as getting central air or anything like that goes here in the old farmhouse we live in, built in 1903. A lot of that is because, I mean, we probably never do it. We don't want it. We don't need it. We moved here from the Philippines, and if you think it's hot in Virginia, go there. It's summer every day of the year, mid 90s, low 90s, extreme humidity. We didn't have it there, and very few people have it there at all. So that's what my wife's used to. That's where my son was born. So we come here. It gets a little hot in Virginia in the summers, and we have a couple of electric fans. We turn them on a couple nights each summer when it gets a little warm, but we're fine other than that. So in the winter we have baseboard heat, which can be expensive, as you know, but we have a wood stove, which keeps that cost down. So to prepare for this winter, you've seen the wood pile down there in the other videos. I'm vehemently working on getting my firewood prepared for the winter. I have enough. I just haven't chopped it all, haven't split it all. And then my wonderful neighbor next door, he's got a few red oak trees still down that we're going to start cutting up a little bit more aggressively now that we're getting closer to the winter. I keep enough water in storage to get us through any sort of power outages that might come and last a week or maybe 2 weeks. If it persists longer than that, I've got, I mean, I'm out here in the country. I've got well water. I've got a stream that feeds my pond. We're fine. We're going to make sure to have extra food stock stored up in case, you know, there's a few days where we can't get out. Last year, as bad as it got, even with that nor'easter blowing the power out and stuff, I could get out every single day. I was working as a mailman at the time. I actually went to work every single day. And I mean, it's just how it is. I'm not preparing for gloom and doom under any circumstances. I'm preparing for reasonable expectations under all circumstances. But I mean, that's pretty much it. That's the old Farmers Almanac's prediction for 2018, 2019. I wanted to share that with you this morning as my morning ramble. I hope it's right because I'm not a big fan of cold weather. I mean, I'm up there. Well, I'm not up there. I'm 44. That's not old. But like I've said before, it's not the years, it's the miles. I have some issues, particularly with my lower back. My lower fifth lumbar is chronically infused. Cold weather does make it a little uncomfortable. I don't take anything for it. I work on flexibility, exercise, staying fit, staying flexible, healthy diet, no drugs, no alcohol, no tobacco products, and I make it through. When I did live in the Philippines all those years, I didn't have any pain associated with my lower lumbar because of the climate. As I age, that might be something that we look more into. I mean, we're already talking about living both places as soon as we can afford to do it back and forth. Spending winters there, and of course, Daniel will have to be out of school by then before we can actually do this full time, but then spring, summer, and fall over here. But I'm going to stay stocked up on firewood. Water's not an issue. Make sure to have plenty of food to get us through several days if the power goes out again and we can't make it out, which has not been a problem. But what are your thoughts? I know a lot of you out there, well, you've been telling me to check out the old Farmer's Almanac. Do you think it's going to be right? Do you think we're going to have a warmer than average, milder than average winter? I hope so. Do you think it's a pseudoscience? Are you against the old Farmer's Almanac? Do you think it's like witchcraft or whatever? Me personally, and this is just my thoughts, my opinion, I mean, when it started, 1792, more folks were superstitious. There was limited technology, limited knowledge as far as weather and all this stuff goes on. If you're wondering why my eyes are red, something has come out here this fall that I obviously am having some sort of allergic reaction to. Yesterday, my nose just ran like a marathon runner, and so I'm still a little, and I didn't take anything for it, because I just don't like to take stuff. But that's what's going on. I got plenty of sleep. I actually been getting more sleep lately since school's back in and we've been getting our son to school earlier. But anyway, give us your thoughts on the old Farmer's Almanac. I hope it's right that we're going to have a much more wild winter. And I'm going to go ahead and get down there and eat my breakfast. We got so much stuff to do here today. We're going to run some errands, do some things around the homestead. Winter is coming. Now that's fact. That's 100% fact. It's going to come, whether we're ready for it or not, no matter how much we prepare for it or not. And there's a lot of things we need to get done around here before it does arrive. So we're still working on getting a ton of grass clippings into our gardens so that they can decompose between now and next spring before we plant again. The leaves are going to be falling soon. We're going to be moving a lot of oak leaves into our gardening spots so that they can decompose and go back, put some nutrients back into the soil. So I got to go down there and keep an eye on my chickens. We had a giant hawk come by yesterday and grab one of our chickens. Fortunately, I was outside cutting weeds. Dearly was in the garden weeding weeds and putting down some grass. So we were both able to run and scream in time to save the chicken. The hawk took off. The chicken wasn't even hurt. There's no blood, no harm, no foul. Roger the rooster came screaming and hollering to save his hen, even though that hawk could have killed him too, but he came over doing his job. So we'll be keeping a little closer eye on them today, making sure they don't wander off too far. That's the first time that's happened, and we've had these chickens about 5 months. I think about 5 months, maybe 4. It's the first time we've known of them being attacked. So, okay, well, I'm not going to keep you. I'm going to give you a beautiful parting shot of the homestead like I always do, and you can see the chickens down here somewhere. They're down here. Hope you guys have a glorious day, and we'll see you for more next time.